Welcome to Spirit-Led Radio. I am your host, Heather Strang, and this week we are talking about your ego is not real, but here's what is. So I want to tell you a little bit about how I do my work so you can understand where I'm coming from as I share this perspective on the ego and what's really true at the heart of it all. So I'm not interested in theories. I'm not interested in concepts. I'm not interested in forms of thought that humans have come up with over generations. What I'm interested in is the highest light perspective. I go to my connection with spirit, with higher consciousness, and I say, guys, give me the real motherfucking deal on this topic. I want to understand it at the core level. This has always been a strong desire for me, and I can't exactly tell you where it came from other than it's my destiny. It's my path. This is the work I'm here to do. And so I'm always wanting to know what is at the root of this. So the concept of the ego just never sat well with me. I always struggled with it. It felt like maybe a smidge of truth, but just quite wasn't aligned. And so I've really taken this into deeper inquiry with my connection to higher consciousness. And I've written about it, I've shared about it in other programs and classes I've facilitated. And it came up as a priority to make sure that we did a radio show on it as well, so that you could really feel the power of this truth coming through and bring it into your life and into your connection with spirit so that you can really live at a higher level as well, or a more aligned level, as we might say. So this concept of ego is actually just an evolved version of the concept around the devil. So, in the early days in early Christianity and even in native traditions, and almost every tradition that you look at, there is this concept of a dark force, a force that's trying to take you out, something that is fighting against you, the quote-unquote evil aspect that you're here to fight against, right? And we see this portrayed in movies and in pop culture all of the time. There's this bad thing trying to take you out and you've got to fight against it and go to the next level, and that's what makes you feel alive. Well, that is actually rooted in strong survival consciousness, which we have the ability to evolve completely out of, and really in the Western world, we are way outside of that. But it's still a theme that humans love to play with and they love to engage in. And the ego is just another expression of that. So we'd say the ego is a more evolved version of the Satan, devil, evil, dark force theory that humans have created for themselves to help them understand their life and understand their life journey. But really, even the concept of ego is now at this time in consciousness an archaic model to be working with. We actually have the ability to evolve forward this idea around ego and really step in to what is true at the core. So here's what you need to know. Your ego does not exist. It was a concept developed by men to help them understand what's happening in the human psyche. And it was a concept that at that time that it was developed served a large number of human beings. It's no longer that way. The ego is frequently referred to as something we have to fight against, something that we have to try and navigate around because it's cunning and it will try and take us out. And that is 100% not true. My question was always why would there be something inside of me that was trying to take me out? That doesn't even make sense. Well, it doesn't make sense because it's not true. There's actually no dark force trying to take you out ever at any level of consciousness. But again, as humans have been evolving, they've been trying to understand, how does this human thing work? And why do I feel more alive when I'm in the survival mode? And then, there's an addiction that occurs to the survival mode. Well, this is just the way to feel alive. Again, we're at a new time and place in consciousness where those concepts just don't serve us and they actually limit us and keep us stuck. So you don't have an ego, but here's what you do have. You have a personality. You have what I call a personality matrix. So when your soul comes in and incarnates into a body, it's coming into a personality matrix, which has characteristics and preferences. Over time, you develop limiting beliefs and traumas and fears that attach to that personality matrix or to the mind. Wherever we want to see this as. But we have a personality matrix that is filled with conditioning. Some of that conditioning is coming in through our connection to our 8th chakra or to what we're here to evolve forward in this lifetime. And some of it is stuff we just get to pick up which is really fun, in this lifetime from mom and dad and other people during our 0 to 6 time frame. So from 0 to 6, the human being, the human body is in a time of theta state. So you're absorbing everything around you and you're forming your limiting beliefs, your fears, active memories, all kinds of good stuff that's really filling you up so that you have plenty to evolve forward in this lifetime. Now, I will say the things that we absorb from 0 to 6 is no accident because they are very similar themes to what our soul has been evolving forward for many, many lifetimes. And so we choose before we incarnate the parents, the framework, the environment that we're going to come into so that we can amass those limiting beliefs and conditioning and then wake up and evolve it forward. So never is there any part of you that is fighting against you. There are only limiting beliefs within you, traumas, fears, that you're here to evolve forward, that your soul came to evolve forward, meaningfully chose the environment that you would evolve into or that you would come into so that you could evolve these pieces forward. That's it. Any level of quote-unquote darkness is simply a repression of an emotion or of a limiting belief. And we know that over time, if we repress emotions, if we, deny that we've got these limiting beliefs going on, it creates a heaviness in the body, in the physical body, in the energy body. And that's what, over time, humans will call darkness and say, oh, there's this dark force or there's something fighting against me. That is never the case. But there is a sense of how much light we are embodying. So humans love duality almost as much as they love the concept of ego. So this feeling that, well, without good, you can't have good without evil and you can't have light without dark. This as well is not true. From the highest perspective, from our deepest connection to all that is, to source, everything is light. Everything. Every single being and thing is at its core light. It's just how much light are you letting in? How much is getting weighed down with limiting beliefs, repressed emotions, traumas, fears, etc. And so it's really just a varying scale of how much light you're embodying or not embodying. And you're just going to keep coming back until you evolve that forward and keep evolving it forward more and more and more. So there's all different kinds of places we could go with this, and there are all different kinds of places that humans love to go with this. And what matters most is that you really follow your deepest connection to what is true for you. I've had people say to me, but Heather, I love the shadow, and I love playing in the shadow, and that really juices me up. That really works for me. And I say, then you have to follow that path. And I want you to know that at the core of it all, it is light. And so go ahead and play in whatever dimensions you feel called to, but just know that this concept of, I have to fight against my ego, or, that thing that happened must have been my ego, right? Or this thing outside of me that's trying to take me out. In all traditions, there is this belief system that there's some dark force trying to take someone out so that humans could understand their reason for being. But I'm here to tell you that it is absolutely 150% not the case, that you are only here to evolve you forward, and because you are connected to everyone else, because we are all one, you're evolving the collective forward. And that's what you need to know. What matters most is that you're not repressing your emotions. You're not repressing your limiting belief systems and fears and traumas. You're actively seeking to evolve them forward. When you allow yourself to feel an emotion, truly feel it without the story, and all emotion is sensation in the body. When you tune into that sensation in the body and you just allow yourself to feel it, it doesn't last more than 90 seconds. And yet we can spend years, whole lifetimes in anger, frustration, resentment. Why do we do that? Because we don't know what we now know, which means now that you know this, there's no going back. You've got to step into the light more and more and more. You've got to evolve your shit forward because that's what you came to do. So I want you to really feel this in your body and really let this settle into you and imagine wait, there is nothing trying to take me out. There is nothing inside of me that is fighting me. There is only that which needs to be explored, only that which needs to be excavated from within me. And so we can identify emotions feel them in our body. And, the JOGs have given us specific tools in the programs that I've offered and facilitated and the one-on-one work I do to work with these emotions, to work with these limiting beliefs. And then we can release them. We no longer have to be defined by them. But what creates that sense of heaviness or darkness is simply the repression of what needs to be felt, of what needs to be acknowledged. And when we no longer deny and repress these aspects of who we are filled with light. I had a conversation recently with a family member, and she said to me, but it just feels so good to lash out and get out my anger at this person. And I remember feeling that way. I remember being in my 20s, and I'm an Aries, and she's also an Aries. So we've got this warrior, fiery energy, and subsequently, a lot of powerful anger can come from that, especially if you've had trauma, right? And anger is easier to feel than sadness or hurt. And I remember feeling I just got to get it out. So people are doing this all day, every day. Maybe you can relate to this. I've got to get these emotions out, and you take them out on another person. Right? No. That is not getting out your emotions. That's not what we mean by doing your evolutionary work, vomiting your emotions on other people around you. When we are at a level of spiritual maturity, and if you're listening to this radio show, if you are tuned into my community, if you are part of this expansion, you are at the level of spiritual maturity where that no longer is acceptable. We have to take responsibility for all of our emotions and no longer project them out to others. And know that if we're having an emotion, all it wants is to be felt. And so while it might feel like relief to get out what we would call darkness or heavier aspects within us, you don't know relief until you sit with the sensation, right? So if we sit with, I was noticing this the other day, I had this anger, it was getting stuck in my chest, it was burning sensation. And I just got out of the story, what I'm angry about, who did what, whatever the story is. And I said, I'm just going to feel, I'm going to be present with this anger. And how you're present with the anger is to even stop calling it anger and just go to this, I've got a burning sensation in my chest. Okay. I'm going to just witness that. Within 20 seconds, that burning was gone. It was clear. My chest was expansive and open. That's feeling your feelings. That's doing your work. And then, I'm not even angry at whoever I thought the story was about or whatever I thought was happening. I came back into surrender and acceptance for what was occurring and returned to my natural state of light. This is how we're meant to walk this path. And we take ourselves out by plugging into and believing in concepts that are limiting, like the devil, like the ego, whatever the story of darkness or shadow. And I have to, just accept my shadow's there, right? There's a lot of stories around, that's just the way it is. That's just part of being human. And I'm just going to nurture that shadow aspect. And I want to encourage you that you're not here to stoke the fires of non-light energy. You're here to bring light to all that is within you. And you do that through your attention to it, through your focused, practiced attention of feeling whatever it is, staying out of the story. It's so much easier when we're at that level of consciousness when we believe it's about everyone else. I remember, God, that was so much easier to just be well, he's a jerk. So, okay, end of story. The truth is that quote-unquote jerk couldn't be in your life unless there was a vibrational match, either karmically or in your current state. And so your job is to pull your focus off of the quote-unquote jerk and take it back to what this life is really about, which is you doing your work, embodying more light than you've ever embodied in any lifetime, and shining that light so bright that it transforms and transmutes anything and everything that comes into your space. So play with this in your life. If you're a big fan of the ego concept, I want you to play with the possibility that you don't have an ego at all. That in fact, you are a beautiful, divine, perfect being. And that yes, you have limiting beliefs, and yes, you have conditioning that may feel heavy or darker or whatever it might be. But any sense of there's a fight and there's something fighting me and something outside of me trying to take me out is just a story that you can plug into or not plug into. And again, when I'm doing my work with higher consciousness, I say, I want to know that the top of the line. I want to know the root of it all. I want to know what's really going on here. I don't want to play around with theories. I don't want to play around with what other men and women have come up with. I want to know the core source truth. And the core source truth is you are a divine being of light, and you're on the journey of embodying that while in a body, should you choose to. Eventually you're going to have to get there, so might as well start now, right? So play with this. I want to hear what you notice. I want to hear what comes up for you. The folks I have shared this with have, felt so light and felt like this relief and knowing that like that whole ego concept and the whole story about devil and darkness and shadow and whatever it might be are just different theories that men and women have come up with to help them understand this human journey. And again, it really is rooted in the survival consciousness. So when we're living at this higher level, when we're living at this connected to source energy, highest light level, there's no survival consciousness. Like it doesn't exist there because there's absolutely nothing to be afraid of. Right? So there's not this like, I have to fight to keep myself from dying. It's like, oh, if I make my transition, cool, then that will mean it was the right time to make my transition. I'll come into another body and I'll pick up where I left off and take things to the next level. Like there's literally no need for competition or scarcity or survival. Because you know the highest truth. You know there is nothing to be afraid of. You know that this whole thing is set up for you to succeed. This whole thing is set up for you to evolve and for you to make a contribution at a deeper, bigger, higher, whatever word you want to use, level than you've ever been able to contribute before. So there's no need for survival. And in fact, as I see this showing up in, movies and, television, entertainment, even in, other people's dramas in their lives, it's so interesting to witness. So you're going to start noticing this survival consciousness kind of showing up everywhere. And it's so interesting, right? That humans still feel this need to have this thing they have to fight against to feel alive and to conquer something. And they have to struggle to get to their survival. And it's like, wait, none of that has ever been necessary. But we are now at a level of consciousness where we don't even have to live like that. Like that's laughable. Right? Like I'm watching it and I'm like, this is hilarious that we've been believing this for so long. And it's reflected in all of our entertainment and, even love stories. It's like, oh, it's this fight and this struggle. And then you can come together and then maybe it'll be okay. It really is not unlike what so many archaic religions and traditions have taught for eons. And it's so unnecessary. And it's so not the highest light. And it's so not how we have to live. And so when we're free of carrying that burden of ego and heaviness and survival consciousness, we have this opportunity to experience our divinity and fulfill our destiny at a level unlike which we've ever been able to do before. I mean, that's what's so cool about being alive at this time in consciousness is that you and I, we've never done this before. We've never been able to get this far before. This is so awesome to be having these conversations, to be tuning into these frequencies and knowing this expanded spirit-led truth on a whole other level and then living our life from this place. Because then life just is, it's like a completely different ballgame when you're out of survival, when you're out of thinking there's something trying to take you out. And when you know that like literally there are legions of non-physical energy around you just like cheering you on and nudging things into place and trying to like help you out so that you can have the best experience you ever had. And then report back when you make your transition and you're doing your review and you report back like, oh, we got here and I learned this and I embodied this and I healed this connection and this expansion occurred. I created this, which had never been created before. I mean, it's so incredible when you can live your life at this frequency. So I encourage and invite you to join me because it's so much fun. So we have a question also that came in that was submitted by a listener, and I love this question. It was so fantastic. I'm going to paraphrase it, but the question was about the nature of souls that incarnate and about animals, and if souls incarnate in, if you start out as an animal and then you evolve into a human, and what about plants and their souls? And I had a general understanding of this through my connection to higher consciousness, but she was asking very specific questions about how does this evolution work for a soul? Does it start, do you start like as a fish, right? We had that whole evolutionary concept, and then, gorilla, monkey, however that went, then to human. Is that how it works? And what about trees and different animals? And can you bounce back and forth? Like I'm a human in this lifetime, and then I'm a chipmunk in the next lifetime, whatever it might be. And so I sat with Spirit, asked about this, and got some really interesting responses. So I'm so excited for this question coming through and getting to share this with you. So what came through is that for some souls, there is a path of animal to human. There is not a regression from human to animal. So that would be a regression of the energy. And then some souls stay in the animal family. That's just their path. And there is not specific soul energy in trees or plants or grass or whatever it might be. What came through for me regarding nature is that it's all a slice of source, and it doesn't have a specific embodiment of a soul like animals and humans do. So I want to share from some of the client sessions I've done how this has come through and manifested. So I've worked with clients where they have, specifically one client, she has a horse. And we had multiple past lifetimes come up for them where this horse had been her pet in many different forms, like a rabbit, a dragon, I can't even remember a bird, all of these different forms. But this soul of the horse had always been her pet. They had traveled together and had always been a companion in animal form for this other soul. And so that was really beautiful. My understanding had been, we've got animal soul lines and then we've got human soul lines. And from this question, as I went deeper, Source came through and said, well, some souls have been animals before, and then they come into human, but they would never go back to animal because they're two completely different sets of consciousness. And in fact, they said the animal souls only evolve into human souls from two animal types, and that is dolphin and horse, which I found very interesting. So the only time you would have a soul coming into human form from animal would be when they had been either a dolphin or a horse in another lifetime. So really fascinating. I'm not exactly sure what motivated that question, but it is one of those curious things. Like, I wonder how this works. And that's what came through from my connection to higher consciousness. Typically, when you have a strong connection with an animal, it's because you journey together, just like with humans. When you have a strong connection with a human being, you know that, they're probably part of my soul family, part of my soul tribe. Same thing with our pets and animals that we come into contact with. We've journeyed together with them many, many times before. I only know one other human being who I respect very much, who feels that she came from, I think it was a dolphin. And so that's the only time I've ever even run across that. And it's not something that I commonly come across. In fact, almost always throughout the past 8 years that I've been working in this regard and connecting with higher consciousness, it's always been animal souls are one stream of consciousness and human souls are a separate stream. And that is because there's just two completely different levels of consciousness. And that's why there would be no revision back, like, I was a dolphin and then a human and then I was a horse. That's not going to happen because expansion is always occurring. A new creation is always occurring. So please submit your questions. If you have any other questions that are coming up for you about living spirit-led, about the spirit path, you can email heatherstrangassistant@gmail.com and we will get those in. And then I have a list of them, and then Spirit just gives me the ding on when to address what question. And if you love this audio, please share it with your people. Let's spread this message about the ego and spirit far and wide. Please feel free to share. And if you'd like to join my online community and get more of this inspiration and goodness in your life, please go to heatherstrang.com, sign up. You'll receive a free energetic toolkit to begin to really clear your energy field and really support your energetic health, because at the root of it all, it's all energy. It has been such a joy to share with you. I look forward to our next time coming together. I'm sending you much love and many blessings.